Hey yo, salute to all my subscribers. Shout out to everybody else passing through. So I stopped by today to talk about a topic. It typically comes up when I'm dealing with people who classify themselves as being religious or members of a church or belonging to some sort of religious faction or another. And it got me thinking. So I'm gonna call this topic the dualism between religion and spirituality. So, as a precursor, I was raised in the church. I was raised, under the religion of Christianity, denomination of Baptists. And, growing up, we always went to church. It wasn't a choice. I was kind of forced into it. Having said that, as an adult, I typically tend, when I get into conversations with people who are self-identified as more religious, I typically classify myself, even as someone who grew up in the church and, was always involved in religion, I identify myself as an adult as being more spiritual than religious. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the more visceral reasons that I have for why I classify myself as spiritual over religious is because when I think of religion, I think more of a set of rules or guidelines. I think more along the lines of something that is more cult-based, or something that is more of like a club or church that you will belong to, where they kind of push certain practices and lifestyles, and they really push the teaching of a book, be it whether that book be the Bible, whether that book be the Torah, the Quran, whatever it is. Religion to me is more about the rules or the guidelines that a person who say that they follow this religious faction and that belief of that religious faction, that they're supposed to live a certain way and carry themselves a certain way. So to me, I look at religion as more of the outward appearance. When I tell people that I'm spiritual, other people who don't identify as the same tend to be tripped up by my self-identification of being spiritual. And the thing is that you can have a person who's religious, who goes to church faithfully, who goes to Bible studies. If they're, if they're Christian or in a Baptist church, they go to Bible studies, they go to church retreats, they go to church every Sunday. You could have people who are Catholic who go to Mass whenever they're supposed to. But you can have people who identify as religious and not really be that spiritual, because I think that the people who are mostly religious, they more so walk a certain way, they talk a certain way, they outwardly live the lifestyle, but they may or may not necessarily believe on a deeper level, on a more visceral level, what it is that they're walking and talking. Now, when I think of somebody who's spiritual, that's from the inside out. You definitely within yourself. Now, there to back up a little bit, there might be people who identify as being spiritual who can also be religious, because all spirituality is somebody who has a faith and a belief in something. Whatever that something is, it's a higher power above themselves. Whether you believe in the universe, whether you believe in God, whether you call it that, whether you just believe in another deity or another state of consciousness, or something that is outside of you, that's outside of your control, that you feel kind of molds and shapes everything around you and life in general, you're somebody who I would classify as being spiritual. Now, somebody who's spiritual can be religious. It just means that they more so conform their spirituality into the belief systems and the teachings of a religion. Because all a religion is just a teaching, a guideline, or a rule, or a way of life. That's really all it is. It's a place that you go to. If you go to church, it's being part of a club or belonging to something that has other members. That's really all religion is. It's just putting a name and putting a group and a classification, a categorization, however you want to call it. It's just putting a name to the feeling, the faith, whatever. But there are plenty of people who are religious who wouldn't have a spiritual connection if they tried. And the reason why the majority of people like me who are spiritual don't really rock with religion is because the church in general is crooked. I mean, you got the Catholic Church and all of the things that we've heard in recent decades of everything that went on with priests and young boys and that whole debacle. Then you got people who are, you know, more self-identifying as Christians, and I was raised Christian, and I still kind of classify myself, as belonging to the religion of Christianity. But you see a lot as a Christian in the Christian church. You see a lot of people who are very judgmental, very up on their high horse. You see a lot of people who feel like because they're Christians, they have discovered the reason and the answer for everything. And they feel like they have the authority over everybody's life, and they know what the answer is, and they know what you need to do in order to live by God's standards. This is the way that I've deciphered Christians for the most part to be, because the majority of Christians that I've come across kind of have their nose high. They kind of look down at people, and God forbid if you identify with any other religion or any other belief system that's outside of what they know and what their Bible tells them, then they look at you like you're an outsider. And that's just how I've come to relate to Christians. And if you want to be real, it could be a little bit of self-hate practice. I don't know. All I do know about Christianity for the most part is that it started as a cult and really wasn't even respected as a religion for hundreds of years. And even when you look at some of the teachings within it, it really just pulls like every other religion does. They really just pull from each other. I mean, what you find in the Torah, you'll find in the Quran, you'll find in the Holy Bible. There's really not too many distinctions. I mean, there's certain separations, but for the most part, the fundamental and basic guidelines that you'll find in any holy book is really the basic foundational guidelines to life in general anyway. You respect people like you want to be respected. You treat people the way you want to be treated. You love people as you would have them to love you. You don't steal, you don't harm anyone, you don't kill. These are all the same basic foundational principles and rules of life. Whether you're religious or not, if you're somebody who just has common sense and you're a decent person and you try to live the best you know how, you're pretty much in line with every holy book that's out there anyway. Now, where I think it starts to take a little bit of a differentiation between somebody that I would classify as being religious over someone who I would classify as being spiritual is I don't feel like somebody who is genuinely 100% spiritual, in touch with the higher self, the otherworldly, external, internal entity of a higher deity, even if you don't want to give it a name. Somebody who classify themselves as being spiritual, I just think that those people like us, people like me, people like you if you're spiritual, if you identify as being spiritual, there's more of a self-reflective and meditative, contemplative presence about people who are spiritual. And we don't necessarily judge. We're open-minded enough when it comes to religion to not feel that somebody's wrong because they practice in Christianity, or feels like somebody's wrong because they follow the beliefs of Catholicism, or somebody's wrong because they identify as being Muslim. Spirituality really is an open realm. It's an open otherworldly form for people to just meditate on life and on everything that is outside of the normal realm of existence and understanding. And there's really no rules there. There's you conform to only the things that you feel you should conform to, because when you unlock yourself spiritually, I feel like you're naturally going to fall in line anyway with whatever governmental, social, religious-based rules that are out there for any citizen of any nation anyway. Like, you're gonna respect people because you feel free from any type of malicious thoughts or mental state of wanting to do harm or cause harm or be harmful, whether to yourself or other people. And I really feel like when you have the religious and the spiritual discussion, where I don't care if somebody identifies as being more religious and they feel like if you don't belong to a church or you have to go to a church to even consider yourself to be a God-fearing person. Those people, because I hear that often, if you don't go to church, if you don't, pray this way or do it that way or go to this building that has stained glass windows and they play organs and do all of these things, that you're not practicing the right way. You're not being a child of God the way that you should. I don't really rock with people like that. To me, people like that are judgmental. And to me, they're not really in line with what God wants us to be anyway. But I feel like if you're spiritual and you exude that type of energy from you naturally, I feel like people could feel it. And I feel like it's a presence that draws people to you. If you're supposed to be representing a religion and you're Christian, for example, and you go around judging people who dress a certain way, and you go around being negative toward people who don't pray like you do or who don't say a certain number of Hail Marys as you do when you go to Mass, or who don't say enough hallelujahs if you go to a Baptist church or whatever the case, whether you're Protestant or Presbyterian, whatever. These people who are mostly, religion oriented, I feel like naturally they're just more judgmental because it's what's taught. A lot of times these people grow up in the same church, or in the same community, and they're around the same people, and they're molded to think that you really have to be a certain way every day, day in, day out. And I don't really rock like that. As somebody who's more spiritual, like I feel like I embrace everything, the good and the bad that comes with being who I am. Whatever my characteristics and my personality traits, whatever they motivate me to be is what I feel like I'm supposed to be. And I don't have to suppress any moods, or I don't have to try to be, happy all the time. I don't have to try to be just this melancholy, kind of even-keeled, non-temperamental. Like, we are what we are. We're multi-layered as human beings. We're very complex. We're spiritual, we're physical, we're mental. There's a whole universe of things that go on inside of all of us. And until you learn to experience those things on every level, and until you're able to give yourself the permission to unlock the rules that society causes us to live by and the rules that being a part of a religious group causes us to live by, until you're able to do that internally within yourself, you can never be truly spiritual. And I think that, as long as the dualism exists between people arguing over whether or not there is a difference between being religious or spiritual, or if they're both one and the same, or if you have to belong to a religious faction in order to even be privileged enough to call yourself spiritual, I think it's all bullshit. I think that people should live how they want to live. People should pray to who and whatever they want to pray to, because really that type of self-reflection, that type of meditative way of being is not for the benefit of other people. It's for the benefit of yourself. We have to get through life the way we need to get through life. And I really, in my adult form at 33 years old, I really can't envision or imagine a God at all that would want us to conform to so many different rules and guidelines that are so outside of the realm of what our human nature generally is, like naturally, our primitive states, primitive beings, that if we got to try so hard to conform to something, I don't really see how that's a godly way of living. And I can't really see a God wanting us to not be natural and comfortable in a place mentally and physically and emotionally where we can explore everything about our personalities and our innermost turmoils, our innermost thought processes, whatever it is. I think that we're meant to explore whatever is around us, whatever is in us, and that whatever goes through us. And I just live my life that way. And if you are somebody who classifies yourself or identifies as being spiritual, then I'm sure that for the most part, you would agree with what I'm saying. And I think if you don't agree with what I'm saying, then you're probably somebody who identifies more as being religious, but it's not the same thing. And I think people who even take a different approach and they have more of an atheist belief, then that's your freedom as well too. I mean, every religion teaches that we as mankind have free will. And if God gave us free will, how is it that people think that they have the right to judge and try to make us conform to be what they think we should be? It is what it is, y'all. I don't pretend to know everything. I just know what I know. I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace and love. Hey, yo, thanks again for tuning in to today's topic. Remember, if y'all rock with any of my content, be sure to like the channel, comment, subscribe, share. Check me out on all my other platforms as well. Remember to follow the Facebook group, Life Relationships and Everything in Between. And check out the Facebook page and like it. Same title, Life Relationships, Everything in Between. Also, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud. Check me out on YouTube and Facebook, the podcast, Life Relationships and Everything in Between. Another episode coming soon.